Hey, everybody. It is Thursday, April 27th. The year is 2023, and we're back with another Sierra Mastermind. My name is Robert Sagers, one of the product managers at Sierra Interactive, and I am just so excited today to be with my friend and co-host, Buddy Blake, and a special guest, Rachael Novak. We're going to be talking today. We're going to add to the plethora of offerings out there right now, talking about how to win listings in a low inventory market. You've seen it, you've experienced it. We're going to be talking to a couple of people who really can, with authority, speak about this topic and what you can do to navigate these times. So we're going to be talking with Buddy and Rachael. First, I will just allow you all to introduce yourselves. Buddy, let's start with you. Tell us about yourself, Wilmington, North Carolina. What else is important?
Well, we run a team here, not a kind of a medium-sized team, and here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I've been doing it for a long time and just super excited to hear what Rachael says, because her and Mike are just, they're just, wonderful. And they know so much, and I'm just going to copy everything they do.
And Rachael, we are tipping the balance now to the great Northwest between you and myself. So you're up in Washington State. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you guys so much for having me on here. I'm so excited to tap in a little bit, bring a little bit of female energy into this typically male-dominated webinar. So on the complete opposite side of the country from Buddy, my husband Mike and I run the Novak real estate team up in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State. We're about 20 miles north of Seattle, and we dominate basically all of what's called Snohomish County. It's about 19 different communities in Snohomish County. So we also run a medium-sized team. We have 8 agents, 5 partners, and 3 full-time admins with a couple of VAs. So we definitely keep pretty busy. But our business is a little bit unique in the way that Mike and I work together, and yet we also separate the business into 2 different lanes. So that's how we're able to be really efficient and really prominently good at what we do, but also stay married and be happy and stay friends and all that stuff. So I concentrate exclusively on listings, have been for 6 years now. Mike concentrates exclusively on buyers. So we work a lot together. We have a lot of mutual clients who are doing both buying and selling, but he and I stay in our respective lanes, and that makes us, again, very efficient and very good at what we're able to do and accomplish. So excellent. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Rachael. All right, we're going to start with a poll for all you watching. That poll is going to go live, and we need your participation. And that is, we're talking about this market and winning listings. How would you define the inventory level in your market? Would you define it as healthy? Would you define it as lean? Would you define it as basically non-existent? Choose one of those options, only one, and let us know. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Well, Buddy and Rachael, you don't have to use the one word or in one of those options, 3-word option answers, but how would you describe the state of your market in one word? Rachael, let's start with you.
Yeah, I put down one word's tough because I'm going to say inconsistent, because underneath our average price point, homes coming on lower, we're completely anemic. There's nothing, literally 0.2 months of inventory under our average price point. And above our average price point, we have about almost 2 months of inventory. So there is no happy medium in our market right now. It is the Wild West out here. Literally.
And bonus points for the use of the word anemic. Buddy, how would you describe your market?
Very much the same. It feels like it's all gas or brake for us. It's full on gas, and then, for a week or 10 days, and then it's full on brake for another 2 weeks. It's just completely gas and brake. You get all excited, get busy, and then all of a sudden it's like, where did I go?
Right.
That's a great way to put it. Mm-hmm.
I see you nodding, and you said inconsistent, Rachael. Is that how it feels for you all? Just like you're full speed ahead and you're stopped, and you're full speed ahead and you're stopped?
Absolutely. I think coming out of kind of the pandemic and the COVID era last summer, everybody experienced this insane shift, right? This insane swing of the pendulum from, all gas all the time, no brakes, to now every time the interest rate rose a point or a half a point or a quarter of a point, the entire market was dead for 4 weeks while everybody readjusted to these new numbers. And so I think that because of that, we've become a lot more sensitive to any sort of changes in the economics. I think people are paying a lot closer attention. I think buyers especially are paying a lot closer attention. And with the interest rates being higher, and they're sustainable, of course, historically speaking, they're not bad, but with them evening out a little bit, that's starting to create another inventory crisis in our market, because a lot of these, homeowners, they refinanced or they bought when their interest rates are 2.5 to 4. So when they're looking at 6.5 to 6.75, that's a really big pill to swallow. They can't get much more house price point wise, for the same monthly payment. So it's definitely creating this very unique dynamic in our market that, some inventory is anemic and some is like sitting there for a long time. So,
and I know that's a thing for you.
Similar?
Yeah, I know that's a thing for you too, buddy. We've talked about that, where just the typical way of people moving is 3 to 5 years they were going to move on, and who knows, as you mentioned, Rachel, how those low interest rates for that fairly sustained amount of time there in 2020 especially, how that's going to impact the moves or lack thereof of people when they would typically be making a move again, right? The cyclical nature of moving residences. So I know that's a thing. Hey, are we ready? We ready to reveal the results of this poll? Let's see it. Let's see the results. All right.
Yeah.
How would you define the inventory level in your market? 0 of you said healthy.
0 healthy.
92% said lean, and 1 of you did say basically non-existent. And you all agree with that? That's kind of where you would put your market as well. Washington State, north of Seattle and Wilmington. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about this. So we're going to get into a couple more polls. Thank you for participating. We'll come back to that. More polls. I want to talk about actually generating listings. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to start with you. Are you getting listings from new leads? Are you getting listings from leads already in your database, or both? Where are they coming from? Where are you getting these listings from?
So the majority about 50% of my listings are past clients in Sphere or referrals. The other 50% are made up of a combination of pay-per-click nurtures, as well as there are, definitely some lower hanging fruit, some of the portal type leads coming through. But Mike and I have built out some pretty long funnels, some long nurture funnels through our Sierra. So a lot of I want to say almost 30% of mine have come through just long-term nurtures, right? We have a very big industry presence in the Pacific Northwest. And so we've got Boeing and we have Amazon and we have Microsoft. So we have a lot of people who are, changing jobs or retiring, that kind of thing. So a lot of those nurtures are coming from a lot of retirees and empty nesters, that kind of thing.
And I want to dive deeper a little bit on that. So you said about half of your listings are coming from PPC nurture, and you guys have dialed in a system. For those of you who are not familiar with Rachael and Mike Novak, they are really doing a lot of amazing things. And they really have dialed in processes, but you all are willing to adapt, and you're willing to consistently shift things around and experiment. And that's something I admire about you all. I'm curious, what is your strategy? If you're willing to share a little bit more about that long-term nurture strategy, what are you doing? Are you dripping texts over the course of a long time? What are you doing?
A couple of different things. And honestly, it's had to evolve over the last 3 years very specifically because, I think we moved into a very text heavy nurture plan over the last 2.5 years, right? Through 2020, 2021, everybody's home, but nobody really wants to talk on the phone. So texting and email was a huge form of communication and the main medium in which, a lot of clientele would communicate with us. And in the last 6 months, we've kind of seen a resurgence in phone calls being a high conversion. So we actually just completely revamped our new lead follow-ups, and we're including, the first 2 weeks, we're calling them every day or every other day. And so we have to evolve with what works and what doesn't work. And we consistently monthly, of course, are looking at what lead sources are closing, what our lead source ROI is on each one. And the other thing that we've really pivoted from was the low hanging fruit, the portal leads, because of the lack of inventory, which it sounds like everybody can resonate with in their market. Because of the lack of inventory, portal leads are almost non-existent. portal leads are almost anemic, right? Because the only time that you're going to be getting portal leads come through, and I'm talking Zillow and Realtor.com and the low hanging fruit, the only time you're going to get those coming through is when there's inventory for them to make inquiries on.
Yeah.
Whereas people who are, pay-per-click leads, they are showing a greater intent, and it's a benefit to us. And we prefer pay-per-click leads because we are able to basically indoctrinate them with what the process should look like. So historically speaking, over the last 7 years, we've seen that pay-per-click leads convert at a higher level over time because we are able to send them, part of our nurture plan is videos. So we have a lot of educational videos, process videos. What does this mean? Here's the 10 steps to buying a home and in order of things that you need to do to prepare yourself. Here are the 10 videos, things that you need to do if you're thinking about selling in the next 12 to 24 months, the highest levels of ROI on cosmetic updates to your home. So we're just dripping on these people constantly, sending them these emails with these informational 3 to 5 minute videos. And people will end up calling us sometimes being like, okay, Mike, I've been watching your market report videos and I've been watching your process videos for 18 months and I think I'm ready to buy a house, right? So it's really just building in so much value that by the end of this, typical pay-per-click lead is 9 to 18 months conversion. By the end of that time, when they're closer to being ready, they have a really basic, good understanding of what the process should look like. They believe that we are the authority in this space to help them through that process. And so they're really way more receptive and coachable. Whereas a lot of the portal leads, they just want a door opener, right? So we found that really being able to build those processes out in the CRM and drip on all of those leads has just raised our conversion a significant amount for pay-per-click leads.
It's really interesting you say that, because in terms of a door opener, I mean, over the course of the last 2.5 years, not in the last 6-8 months or so, but it was steak every night for dinner. And now it's, in terms of this industry, and now it's maybe hot dogs every other night, right? It's a little bit of a different feast than famine, right? Thank you for the Top Ramen reference. Anemic, Top Ramen, that's 2 bonus points for you, Rachel. I'm curious. It's interesting that you say a few different things I want to drill into a little bit deeper. And I am certain that Buddy's interested in this as well. You've shifted from a text intensive follow-up plan to more of a phone call oriented process. And you said you're calling them every day. So let's say, who's calling them every day? Who's calling?
So the agent assigned. So we utilize round robin, of course, for whoever is qualified and based on production to be receiving the pay-per-click leads. And then the agent that gets automatically assigned to that lead is the one who those tasks show up for.
And I was really interested too. I mean, so you're talking about PPC leads. So those are people who have registered on your website. They're not coming to you from Zillow. They're not coming to you from Realtor.com. And you have paid to send them to your site. They're converting. They're coming into your database. And sounds like you're doing a lot of education intensive follow-up. Are you working with like a lot of first-time home buyers still, or what's going on there?
Well, it's interesting because yes, there's a lot of first-time home buyers, but in our market, our average price point is pretty high. So the first-time home buyers that's the anemic market, right? That's the really, really difficult market. So one of our main focuses, and what we've kind of found over the years of being, very deeply involved in pay-per-click leads and having processes for them, is that between probably 55% of pay-per-click leads have a house to sell. And the majority of those are first-time home sellers. And nobody ever talks about or tries to educate the first-time home seller.
Thank you. Exactly.
Right? Because so many real estate agents are focused on the first-time home buyer. And then, of course, if you've already been through the process, then you kind of have an idea. No, it is so different to go and think about giving a real estate agent a portion of the equity that you've built in a home that you love, that has so many memories and nostalgia attached to it. So a lot of the education that I've catered and been providing is really geared toward first-time home sellers. So I think it's a really underserved education market.
It's very helpful, and thank you. I said buyers, first-time home sellers, and that is not a phrase that I feel like I hear a lot. I've been, not a realtor, but kind of in this industry for a number of years now. And I just don't hear that phrase. Buddy, what about you? Like when you are working right now with your listings, Are you finding that you're getting, there's gold in the database, so to speak? Are you generating new seller leads? What are you doing? A mixture? What are you doing?
I mean, we're still generating seller leads, but most of what we're getting is past clients, sphere of influence, and people that have been in our database for years. I mean, I literally just got one in today that was in our database in 2015 is when they
Wow.
originally came in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And they've cycled through life a few times. And our markets, you asked one word, our word is messy, because we're seeing a lot of estates, trusts, probate, things like that that's coming to market. I don't know if there's more of them or if it's just that's all there is. But the other thing that we're starting to see, because we're kind of a vacation market, Airbnb, a lot of that stuff, here on the coast, a lot of people that bought in the last 2 or 3 years, based on 30 to 40 weeks a year revenue, it's not happening. And you can read all about it nationwide, Airbnb and VRBO, the bookings. I mean, there's more vacancy than there's been in 4 years. So they were counting on 30 weeks a year. Now we're back to the normal 16 weeks a year. And that's not working with what they borrowed on. So, and we don't see despair, but we're seeing people clear equity right now. And every time that government rates at least get back in with a 5 in the front of it, every single time we get people calling us again. But it's, when we're sitting up in the mid 6s and 7s, like Rachael said, it's just hard to take that pill, going from 3 to 6 or 3 to 7. But if it's got a 5, that's like the magic number.
That's good. That's a good insight. Hey,
for sellers and buyers. I mean, for us, it's
Exactly.
sellers. They won't even come to the table. So
Exactly.
Got to have 2. All right, let's ask, we got anonymous attendee. Again, if you're watching us live right now, we would love for you to ask your questions. We have got a couple of people who can really give some good insight and value here. So if you've got a question, please do not hesitate in the Q&A box or the chat box. Anonymous attendee, I don't think that's a real name, but if our goal is to get new clients, they said, what is the ideal way to do this right now? Not in theory, but what has worked for you this past quarter? I am doing everything that should work in theory, but the number game is failing me. And so I don't know, with the number game, if that means that they're just trying to generate as many leads as they can. I know you've spoken to some of that, Rachael, already. Anything additional that you would add to your previous answer around what you're doing with leads in your database, in particular, PPC Nurture, for Anonymous?
I honestly, like Anonymous has said, it's a numbers game. And like to reference kind of back to what Buddy was saying, we have a lot of home sellers that would love to upsize or would love to downsize or would love to move out of state right now, but interest rates are really intimidating. So the other thing that Mike and I've done that really, really, really has worked, and anybody who's been in the industry for 3+ years, this is going to be a big game changer, is we've implemented a pretty aggressive, what we call PCSOI plan. So it's past clients and sphere of influence. And we have a spreadsheet that we put every single one of our closed clients into, and we segment it by quarter. So every single quarter, every single one of our past clients hears from us. 1 quarter, it's a call, and the other 3 quarters, it's a text message. And just from consistently making those calls, and this is just a simple phone call, right? I think people overthink calling, because Mike and I do not believe in calling and asking for referrals. We don't do that. We don't like it. It feels yucky. We believe in earning referrals. We believe in the value and the service that we bring, people wanting to bring people to us. So we simply call and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I just wanted to say, see how you're doing, maybe reference something like, did you guys ever get that kitchen project finished? Did you ever build that patio? Right? Just something specific to that person. And it's amazing the conversations that we've had with some of our past clients. So, I've gotten, of the, dozen or so listings I've closed this year so far, half of those are past clients or direct referrals from those past client phone calls. So no theory, no hypothesis, that absolutely works. And we've also sent them some little gift every other month. So 1 month, we sent them like a beginning of the year kind of market output, market update. And last month we sent them a little, dishwasher magnet that had the clean, dirty thing that was just customized. Just little tiny things cost us $6 and then another $2 in shipping. And people are responding back like, oh my gosh, I love that. Right. So little things. So we're investing pretty heavily in PCSOI, because if you built a database of, a couple hundred people that you've closed, they're going to know people. But this is still a relationship business. No matter how much technology we ever infuse, relationships will always trump technology when it comes to your people.
Yeah, and I know that Buddy's spidey senses went up when he heard about the physical mailers, because I know he's pretty into those as well in terms of sending people things.
Well, it's a demographic thing for us.
I wanted to ask you all, we'll come back to this. Absolutely. Yeah, no, you've got folks who are definitely wanting to have, you've mentioned this before, folks who are willing to grab onto things and do enjoy having them. Buddy, when you are making calls right now, are you using any scripts?
Honestly, we're trying to get back and be a lot more open-ended and trying to get conversations going about, how to, these people, here's the deal. We've got notes and we know we've talked to them in the past. And a lot of the folks, now if they're sphere of influence, that's a different animal, but a lot of these folks don't realize they've talked to us in the past. So, because we've got the advantage of notes, but we just ask them, how'd you find us? We talk about something that has nothing to do with real estate to start with and open the door. And then, tell me what's going on, when are you thinking about moving? We're doing kind of adverse. We're not asking about mortgage pre-approval, qualification, any of that stuff out of the gate anymore. We're just trying to get an open conversation going with them that feels less threatening. So, the conversation changes and it's changing every week now.
Yeah, you have to adapt, right? But the relationship building component is key, and not being a robot. Okay, let's talk about your listing presentation, but first the poll. Poll number 2. If you're watching live, please provide your feedback on, have you made any changes to your listing presentation in the last 6 months? Your 3 options being yes, no, or I'm not sure if I should. So I'm curious, Rachel, tell us about your listing presentation these days, kind of your process there. And has it changed over the course of the last few years?
So I'm pretty passionate about this subject, both scripts and role playing, as well as a listing presentation, because like Buddy said, we have to customize. People are pretty savvy. People are becoming more and more savvy. And to Christopher, I see a webinar chat, he said, I've tried a couple times to build with Convo first and then get met with annoyance being asked to get to the point. So that for me comes down to mirroring and matching the particular personality of the person on the other end, right? So there's going to be people on the other end that are really high Ds, if you're familiar with the disc profile, and man, they don't want to waste their time. Like, what's the point? Where are you at? What do you want? And you got to get to the point with some of those people, but
you got to drive to it. Yeah,
exactly. Back to kind of the listing presentation. I don't call it that. I haven't called it that for a couple of years. I call it a home valuation appointment or a strategy session based on the personality of the person I'm talking to. Because I think that when you're saying, I'd like to do my listing presentation, they feel like they're setting up for what are those? The timeshare presentation, right? Have you ever walked into a resort and been like, oh, do you want to come listen to this and we'll get a free credit for the no, I sure don't, right?
You don't walk in with your school project trifold where you pop it up on their coffee table, right?
Right. So, I think that the way that relationships in this industry is being conducted really needs to move away from, I'm not presenting you anything. I'm simply coming in and I'm finding out what your needs, your concerns, your questions, your motives are. And then I know all my stuff inside and out. I know exactly the services I can provide. I know exactly the kind of, agent I am, the type of tough negotiator that I can be. But I'm going to, in a way, customize what I'm going to give you and provide for you based on your needs. So really getting them to talk more, right? The scripts, the role plays that we do, I think real estate agents have this misconception. Those are for us. Role plays and scripts, they're for the client, right? Like I said, we know everything we need to do. We know what we provide. We know this process inside, outside, forward, back, front, everywhere. So our job with using those scripts is simply to condense the information that we have about the process and organize it in such a way that we can put it into the brain of that client and they understand it right away. That's the key, right, to scripts and role plays. And so, like Buddy said, being able to customize these conversations and being able to listen to what they need, they want, what are their motives, what is their timeline, and have zero agenda whatsoever, right? And the more conversations you have, the more rocks you're going to turn over, the more you're going to find, right? The more gold you're going to find. So in regards to listing presentation, I would say that the services have changed. In 2020 and 2021, we had to throw in a lot of services to win listings, cleanings and junk removal and all these additional things because it got really, really competitive for listings. We've pulled all that back in the last year. So we provide a lot less services than before. And especially if homes are taking a little longer to sell, we can't front as much hard costs, of course, but the service level, the marketing, the online presence, none of that's changed. It's just simply how it's presented to each particular client based on what they need.
Even what you call it. So you mentioned strategy session. What was the other one? Home valuation.
Home valuation. Yep.
Yeah. So those are the two. So even in the way that you present it, based on the personality, mirroring and matching, you get to know, you can only do that if you can, get a pulse on the person, right? And get to know them a little bit and build a relationship so that you know a little more about them.
Yep.
Buddy, I'm curious for you. You call it a listing presentation?
I mean, we do
internally,
but we don't with the customer. I mean,
yeah,
I can't tell you the last time that I went and did a presentation. If I'm presenting, I'm responding at that point to, I'm just shoving words down their throat and it's not going well. If I get to the point that we're not having a conversation, or one of my agents, when I go with them, it's going to go bad. We lead with questions. A big thing I learned a long time ago, we take a notebook with a blank page and we write a lot because people respond to you writing because they take you seriously. And even if you're writing gobbledygook, at least you're writing something. But the other thing is we're doing a lot more stories now, conversations about recent stories. Well, let me tell you what happened with such and such. Let me tell you what happened with this house over here, because that's what we got to sell is our experience and our stories. And people are coming to us now, not so much to, like I said, it's messy, our market right now, not so much just to get the highest dollar possible. They're coming because they got a problem and they don't want to deal with it again, which is good because people need us again. These estates and everything 2 years ago, they'd have been putting for sale by owner signs up because they didn't need us so much in their minds. Now they need us again, and they know that the market's messy. They're hearing about it every day, how the real estate market's shifting. So, I mean, we just lead with stories and experience and how we're going to help them. We create this isn't right. We let them know about things they're going to have to deal with that they probably don't know about, so that we can tell a story around it and show our value, the true value of what we do. The true value is not a sign or marketing of what we do in today's world. It's how we're going to get you from point A to point B with the least amount of damage and the most amount of money.
It's very good. Okay, poll results. 60% of you said you have made changes to your listing presentation the last half year. 40% no. All of you were decisive, and none of you said you weren't sure if you should. All right, thank you for participating in that. I think we still have one more poll to come, but we'll get there.
Except Scott Hack. Scott Hack says that he thinks he should probably get a presentation.
He hasn't made any changes, then yeah, he certainly hasn't. Maybe his change is to get one. Thank you, Scott. And that's a good point. He says, I guess I need to get a presentation, which, is tongue in cheek, and Scott's a fun guy. But I think it does speak a little bit to the point of, to both of you. Buddy, you mentioned around having an ongoing conversation. If you get to the point where you're like, presenting, that's not a great place for you to be.
Well, let me say, like Rachael said, we have the information with us so that we can answer it. Like if they ask about it, or they show an interest in, or they show a pain point with something, so that we can address it. But we don't. In the old days, we used to sit down and do their 2-hour listing presentation, whether they wanted to hear it or not. You're going to hear it.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's exactly right, buddy. Like, I have the same booklet with the CMA and all my marketing information and snippets and reviews and like all the information in a packet that exactly the same. But no longer do I start at page 1 and flip through and go through it in presentation style. It's like we're having a conversation first, then I flip to the relevant page, and then the conversation continues, and then I flip to another relevant page. So it's really become less of a chronological presentation, much more of just an open-ended conversation with that person. So,
Yeah,
buddy's
okay.
on for sure.
I'm curious if you mentioned around services, Rachael, that, as you're winning listings in the midst of, when people are making moves, right, in the last few years, and now you're pulling those services back some, especially if houses are taking longer to sell. I'm curious, and maybe, buddy, I'll start with you. Have you had any tricky conversations with sellers recently about commission structure? Well, you don't have to go into the details.
No.
I'm curious how you've handled it.
No, not so much. I mean, commission, we're not hearing as much as we were,
Yeah.
unless somebody's on a different planet. We're not back to where we were getting as far as numbers, but we're inching back up. But we're not seeing the commission objection the way we were. You still, like I said, you'll still get somebody that doesn't know that the market's changed or changing, but not nearly as much.
You were nodding, Rachael. You agree?
In some ways, yes. So
Okay.
it's a lot less, but in our market, again, like we have a lot of very savvy full-time homeowners working for Microsoft and Amazon, and they have built-in real estate agents in those companies that like have to give kickbacks and provide closing cost credits to buyers. We have Redfin. We're the home of Redfin, which is a 1% listing brokerage. So we have a lot of competition in our market. I'm not a discounter, but let's just put it that way. I don't discount. I know my worth. I know how much work my team's going to put in for you. I know how our track record and how much we win. And so I don't get a ton of objections, if I'm totally honest. And when I do get an objection, like Buddy said, either they're kind of on another planet and I likely is not a personality I may want to go through that process with. Or I haven't provided enough value to them in, the relationship leading up to that in-person objection, or in enough value in that meeting with them. So each one that I lose, or each one that I maybe have to move on from each time, I learn a little bit, which is all good.
Yeah. So you assess. It's either about them, like this is probably not a person that's going to be great to work with, and you just got to be honest sometimes about that, right? What's it worth for you, your time, etc., your team's time, or you learn like, hey, where did we miss in terms of the value provided? Like, why is it that they thought that this, we should cut here, but you don't discount.
No. Well, and again, kind of similar to what Buddy said, the last couple of years, if you got a listing, it was gold. It was selling 100% of the time. And so if they're telling you crazy numbers, you're like, hey, it's probably possible, but here's the strategy to list it at this price, and then we'll get up to that number. Now we are a lot more picky with the listings that we take. If we don't feel like they're in the realm of possibility or in the ballpark of market value, or buyers may not see it, I've not taken listings specifically because of that, right? Because it's an investment of time and money for the team up front to invest in those listings. And if they don't sell, or the seller isn't willing to adjust based on market conditions, then it's not worth either of our time.
Okay. So along those lines, and you kind of led into it, have you all, and Buddy, start with you, have you had any difficult conversations recently with sellers about listing price, days on market, this type of thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're planting the seed ahead of time. Honestly, if we don't have an offer within the first 2 weeks, we're going to have a conversation, and let's go to the real price.
Okay.
The funny thing is, Rachael mentioned if we're not in the ballpark, we're still trying to figure out where the freaking ballpark is, because we're not even sure, because we see stuff that makes no sense still happening because of scarcity. But then we see stuff that should sell that's not selling. So we're trying to figure out our ballpark, and we're still having to work with people to massage them down. But we are planting those expectation seeds as we go, and making adjustments a whole lot faster than, we haven't had price reduction conversations in 3 or 4 years, but we're setting that up front. Okay. So more than we were.
Right. How about you, Rachael?
Yeah, I've had a lot of tough conversations, because there's a lot of home sellers in our area, especially, that we've gained 40 to 50% appreciation in 3 or 4 years. It's
Right.
bananas. Like it's absolutely bananas up here. And so when people see that and they hear that, they kind of ignore the fact that in some pocket markets that, appreciation is back down 20% year over year now, and they still want this number up here. So, just like Buddy does, it sounds like I set a lot of expectations up front and I say, this is my suggestion, but at the end of the day, I work for you. If you want to try here, that's totally fine. But I need you to understand that this is your marketing strategy, right? I'm going to do these things. I'm going to fulfill my end of the bargain when it comes to online, access, and I'm going to expose it to the buyers and get it on the websites and be pushing it all the places. But if we don't see an offer in the first 14 to 21 days, then we're going to try my marketing strategy, which is this number. And so we have that conversation up front.
And how receptive are people to that conversation? You've said it right up front. Okay, if we don't get there right away, with 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to do a different approach. I'm guessing they're pretty receptive to that. Is that true?
Yeah, totally. I would say like 95% of the time people are like, yes, okay, we had that conversation. Yeah, all right, let's go. I kind of predetermined the percentages of adjustments that we're going to need to make. So I say that first price adjustment it can't be $500. Like it needs to be a 3 to 5%. That's actually going to put you in a different bracket where more buyers are going to be exposed to that in their online searches, right? So we have this conversation. So typically, yes, I would say they're mostly receptive.
And I just say with you, Buddy, around figuring out what the ballpark is. I mean, I just follow my market a little bit, and it's so interesting because I see some that I cannot believe that house, and I see these significant price drops, and then I'll see a house sell for way more than I would have expected, and it is still just.
Well, I think that's part of the gas and brake, and that's where
I don't have a rhyme or reason for it yet.
But I think that's kind of the gas and brake, because now, I mean, we had a conversation with somebody yesterday saying, when should we come to market? And I'm like, hold, and let's get the next gas, because everything that comes to market during the gas week sells quickly. And then if you bring it to market during the slow time, then it sits, only because there's just less activity.
Right. Yeah. Don't try and stand on the surfboard when the wave hasn't come, right? Is that right? All right. We've got a question from Mr. or Mrs. Miss Anonymous. This may vary based on company size, but for a single local realtor office, what do you think a good number of listing appointments per month would be a reasonable number in the current market? Do you all track that, Rachel? Do you track number of listing appointments per month? Is that a metric that's valuable to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's more valuable, of course, is the conversion between METs and signs. So, our office, like our team as a whole, averages about between 70 and 75% MET to sign ratio for our listings. So I can't say that there's a good number. I say as many as humanly possible is what I would say. So, good number. All right, if we're talking about a single agent, you want to try at least for, 8 to 10 a month if it's a single agent. If it's an office, based on production and based on how many agents are in that office, I would say at least 8 to 10 a month per agent would be a good amount, because if you're going to sign 70-75% of those, then you're going to have a pretty decent business.
Thank you, Buddy. Do you track that? Do you track appointments?
Well, it's amazing she said that, because we've always, I try, if you're doing 2 appointments a week, that's a good number to aim for. And, in the conversion, it's just tricky right now because we're seeing a longer term conversion. The conversion at that meeting, we're probably getting half of those right now. But if you track it over the course of 30, 60 days, we're probably more approaching what Rachel's doing. So, but a couple a week is what you ought to be doing. If you're getting a couple at bats a week, and you can make a good living that way.
100%.
Yeah, a couple per week is the 8 a month about.
Yeah.
So,
and that's spot on, Buddy. So I track mine, like literally what I sign in that meeting, and then of course the follow up between what we call it a met with not signed, right? They're in a watch status between when I meet with them and when they actually sign on their prime client. I sign almost exactly 50% at that meeting, and then I sign the other 25 to 30% just following up with them and staying the authority. Because sometimes I want to get people in front of people right away. If you're 12 to 18 months out, that's totally okay with me. I want to come and be able to coach you through that whole process over the next 12, 18 months, right? I want to be the person you go to with all your questions between now and then. And so 30% at minimum of the people that I meet I don't sign them until, 6, 12 months, even longer sometimes out from when they're actually ready to sell. So it's a good point.
Let's switch a little bit. And again, if you've got questions, be sure to pop them into the Q&A or the chat. Let's talk about switching gears just a little bit. Now, Rachel, I want to start with you. How have, especially, since you guys have dialed in your 2 tracks on your team, how have the buyers in your market evolved and adapted over the course of the last 3 years?
Oh man, I think they've been experiencing whiplash and sidelash for the last 3 years, 4 years, maybe even. There has been a lot of adapting, and it is a constant conversation in our office of how to coach people, right? And when to push on them a little more, when to challenge their thinking, when to take them at face value. So I think the buyers in and of themselves, like I mentioned earlier in our meeting here, their behavior is based greatly upon headlines. So we are constantly having to debunk headlines that they see. We're having to constantly, educate and continue to encourage and, break down facts because they're seeing these, crazy headlines sometimes. And that might be true nationally, but it has nothing to do with our local market.
Right.
So there's a lot of education and a lot of coaching and a lot of practicing and conversations we're having to have as agents, masterminding together on the team to be able to help coach those people. So there's been more adapting, I think, for buyers in the last 3 years than, Mike and I have been involved in real estate since 2003 and 2005. So it's a lot right now.
So some whiplash, and that kind of speaks to the inconsistency. Buddy, I think you've mentioned to me in the past that the buyers are savvier now than they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they are, but that's a really good term that Rachel said, whiplash, and it's almost like it never stops. So just ping ponging,
right?
Because we've gone in our world, end of last year, Q1 this year, we've gone from a world where deposits, non-refundable deposits started dripping down. List price per sale price started dipping some, but over the last 30, 60 days, all of a sudden it's taken more deposits, and we're starting to see multiple offers. We're not seeing 20, but we're seeing 2 or 3 for good properties. And the buyers are confused because the media's, if you go on there any given day, they're talking about how house prices are dropping and all this kind of stuff. And I do think that that's purely local. And but if you got no inventory, we've got 300 houses available in my whole region.
Wow.
And there's just nothing there. And there's not, like I posted on Facebook, there's nothing to throw e-alerts. There's no, there's 30 listings a week coming on. So there's nothing to fire e-alerts, and the market updates data, there's nothing in it because there's no pendings and there's no list active. So our data that we've been relying on is a problem right now.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I know it makes it difficult, and some of those things you can have in the automated, the market updates and the save search alerts, not as much to go off of, and the data is changing.
But it's confusing, like Rachel said, they're getting such mixed messages, and everything is local. Every market is local, and it's not even just local to a region. It's hyper local to a neighborhood now.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly, and price points, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
What has been, Rachel, what's one change you've made in the last 6 months that's enabled more success in generating listings than anything else you've done? The thing.
So definitely the our PCSOI plan. We're really good. We have been really good about client events and connecting with our past clients and keeping up with them on social channels, but creating an intentional plan where every single one of our clients gets a touch from us every single quarter has been a huge game changer for us. Because a lot of people, so we went from, I want to say, 32,000 real estate agents in our MLS in Pacific Northwest, like Puget Sound, Washington, up to we're almost in the 70,000 real estate agents over the last 3 years. And that, because it was so easy, you got a listing, it sold, all of a sudden I'm a top 1% real estate agent, and right. So I think still being here, still having a voice, still following up with people, being the loudest voice in a world that is so noisy. I think that in and of itself has really set us apart with our past clients, and therefore, they're tagging us in their little gifts, and they're tagging us if, we send them a nice text message. And so we're getting more and more, featured from our biggest fans. And so really implementing kind of that top fan, biggest fan plan has been really, really big for our generating listings this year.
Thank you. And buddy, what are you doing? What's one thing that's just made a significant impact, a change you've made in the last 6 months?
I mean, probably, we're trying a couple third-party systems to re-engage with these people, and not to do the work for us, but to at least get people to raise their hand so that our agents have a reason to call them. Because when you're looking at a database of, 10,000 sellers, it's kind of hard to figure out who you're calling. And at least, if they're active over here and they're raising their hand on this, you got a really good reason to reach out and call them. Because at the end of the day, all the systems we've got, the databases we got, the marketing we do, if you fail on calling the people when they have a high temperature, whether it's a seller temperature or a buyer temperature, you've got to reach out to them when their temperature is high, or they're going to forget about you and forget about everything else a week later, or even 3-4 days later. And sellers are just being, like you said, ping pong. They are just going through shock all the time. It goes from the rates are down, I need to sell, I need to do this. And I mean, I think rates are affecting sellers as much or more than they are buyers right now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. I just to kind of throw in here, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about prospecting and using the phone. One of you all suggested a topic of prospecting. We've heard that feedback. We're going to be talking about it. And it was really interesting insight you had there, Rachael, around some of the transition you've made around text message intensive to more phone oriented approaches to leads that you're generating. So I think that's really helpful. The nice thing about having systems and automations set up, and I know the Novaks are intensive with the automations, is that they can raise those high intent opportunities. So like you said, buddy, you call or you reach out when the temperature is warm, like at the right time. Are you finding that that's helpful, Rachael, to have some things that surface like this is the time now, or is it really about the consistency in your approach, or is it about both? The timing, the consistency, or both?
I think both, because one thing that we're doing now, of course, is, the people that had kind of raised hands, like little half hands back in the fall, and then opted not to because of interest rates. We're calling all of them back, even before, when the 6 month, I'm not going to do it until next fall now. Well, we're calling them right now and saying, hey, the market's totally changed again. Like, this is what it's looking like. I want you to know that because it's relevant. So I think timing of it for sure is important, but the consistency is also obviously important.
There's a follow-up to a previous question from Anonymous, who says, I guess I should be a bit more specific for someone without an SOI and large pipeline. This is going back to the setting appointments. As an individual, how many listing appointments should an agent be able to acquire via cold calls with various people? So not in their SOI, not in their past clients. What would you suggest, buddy, to somebody? You're so clued in and keyed in on agent training and making sure and mentoring. How would you coach somebody like this who's getting?
I'm gonna have to yield that question because I mean, honestly, we don't do cold calling, we don't do circle prospecting, so that's just not an avenue that we've done in a long time. So I don't know the real metrics on that, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, so I'll follow up a little bit. That's going to be totally market dependent because we don't have a lot of cancels. We don't have a lot of expireds. So you're not going to have a ton of success, if I'm totally honest with you, Mr. Anonymous, because there's just not, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. And if there's not a ton of numbers, there's not going to be a ton of appointments. So if you're newer and you don't have an SOI, Mike and I got back into real estate in 2016. In our first full year in 2017, we closed 79 transactions. 77 of them were PPC. And I want to say 90% of them were buyers. We knew we had to build a foundation of clients to be able to work our way into being listing heavy. You're never going to start listing heavy. So we knew that we had to build a whole foundation of first-time home buyers who 3 to 5 years, and sure enough, of course it has happened, 3 to 5 years from then are now going to become a lot of our listings, right?
Makes
So
sense.
Yeah.
Well,
That's how you build it.
I want to add on to what she said, and our team, we got away from this during COVID just because everything was flying in the door. You build your business when you're starting the business, in my opinion, on the buyer side.
Yes.
Okay. And then those buyers in a few years become sellers. We used to didn't let new buyer agents on our team even list property. But then when there was no listings, we threw everything we got at it. Well, we created some really bad habits and inconsistency with our systems and what we were saying to people. So we just pulled that back, and it's caused some struggles. I'm not going to lie. But if you're new to this business, you need to focus on the buy side because you can get that quicker. And there's a whole lot more buyers out there than there is sellers.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a good reality check. So let me get those numbers again. Rachel, you guys were in real estate and then you were out, you came back into it. And in your first year, you and Mike, 77 of 79 of your transactions that first year were buyers, and 90% of those were from PPC. Was that your number?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right. So what does that tell you? It tells you that you got to spend, right? You got to generate those leads. And then when you actually are generating them, they're buyers, right? That's how you then build your future sellers, right? Is you work with people to buy.
Like there is no joke. Like Buddy's totally spot on. We worked relentlessly. We knew that if we invested 2-3 years of just 60, 70, 80-hour weeks to service a ton of people and build our database, create the systems to nurture those people and to take care of those people and to follow up with those people, that we, would eventually have a foundation that we have now that we can work and get done in 3 days, what a lot of real estate agents spend 7 days doing, right? So it's a huge, huge learning curve. We kind of looked at it like the hockey stick analogy, right? Where, if you've got to build and it's a slog and it's, tough and you don't feel like you're getting a ton of places, and then all of a sudden you kind of hit, a compound, it starts compounding and all of a sudden, boom, you're up, right? So that's how we looked at it, and that's how we approached it to build the business.
Speaking of work, and I think I know the answer to this question, Rachel, start with you, but Candy asks, are you using any AI feature for automatic follow-up on your leads?
So we sure were, yes, both we've used, Agent Legend back in the day. We used Raya with Ylopo for a little bit, and of course Sierra, some follow-up stuff, but we actually have gotten a lot of away from AI. People are smart. Buyers have gotten savvy, to quote Buddy Blake, right? I mean, buyers have gotten savvy. They know exactly when it's a mass text. They know exactly when it's AI. So we've really gotten away from it now. We've tried the ISA model a couple of times, of course, but really this is back to an agent, like an agents with skills market. Like you need to be an agent, you need to have skills, you need to be savvy, you need to work. Like we are back to the basics. And even as, Mike and I have built a business and our, top 2% in our market, like we're putting in the work again, like everybody's back to basics. So I would say we can't rely on the tools and the automated follow-ups nearly as much as we could during COVID. It truly is back to spending the time, doing the nurtures, being responsive. Speed to response is super important. So we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the automations, even if you sprinkle in some from Sierra AI, you're using that. It's not, you don't want it to actually replace you. That's not what you want. It's there. Those tools are there and wonderful to use to surface the real opportunities that then allow you to do the actual work, provide real value, local market expertise, all the things that you can bring with you in you, right? That's the real focus there, I think, of those tools, is to surface it for you. All right. I think I have one more question for you all, and that is putting on your prognosticator hats. Buddy, what do you anticipate, as much as you can tell from all your experience, quarter century in this industry?
Thanks a lot.
Well, But it sounds really big when I say it
Way
like
to go,
that. Right?
Robert.
It sounds
Long
very
time.
big.
Yeah. What do you anticipate happening in the market in the coming year? And how are you right now preparing for that?
Well, I've made a lot of preparations in the last 90 days, but I think that the biggest thing is I think we're going to have I mean, if we had listings, it would be great. But I think what we see right now is probably we're going to see it pick up a little bit over summer for us. And then it's probably going to start tailing back in July when our world starts shifting around. I think probably, end of this year, beginning of next year, probably similar to what we saw this year. But I think after that, I think we're going to see some gas because, every time there's an election year, and I don't care which side's in it, they will either artificially or not artificially, all of a sudden the Fed starts doing things and you start seeing people create things that may or may not be. So you're going to see some energy coming online. And the longer we get away from 3% interest rates, the better it's going to be because people's lives are going to change. They have babies, they need to downsize, they do whatever. Those events aren't, and they also realize that those days are never coming back, probably.
Mm-hmm. New normal becomes more.
I think it's going to, here's the deal. The good news is it's going to be hard. That's when we thrive as professional real estate agents, because if it's easier, we can automate it. They don't need us anymore.
Right.
What about you, Rachel? What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, I just have to put total hats off to Buddy. I completely 100% agree that every time we get close to an election, whichever political party is in that house will artificially, probably lower interest rates a touch or stir something in the economy because they want to keep the office. And so I would anticipate the same kind of thing, that we're going to see some, some gas being poured on the fire next spring as we go into 2024 for the rest of like Q2, Q3. I think it's going to be really tough for buyers. I think we're going to continue to see really low inventory, which makes it really, really difficult for buyers to get into homes. So for us as real estate agents, it's continuing to sharpen the skills. It's continuing to have tons of conversations and continuing to what we call top grade our pipelines, keep the people that are motivated, ambitious, and financially qualified at the top of that pipeline, or I guess bottom of that pipeline, to be able to make moves, right? So it really is a skills-based market. And like Buddy said, I also love the opportunity that it presents good real estate agents, because this is the market we set ourselves apart. We need this market. This market is so incredibly necessary for us as real estate agents to sharpen our skills, to gobble up market share, and to continue to serve clients at a high level. So I'm here for it. It's going to be tough, but hey, we're made for tough times. I love it.
I love that. Good for you. All right. One thing, if anybody heard nothing else today, Buddy, that you would leave everybody with today.
I mean, Rachel hit it on the head. You got to work. You got to call people. You got to talk to. If you don't talk to somebody, you're not going to sell something or list something. It's that simple. So you just aren't talking to enough people.
Rachel, one takeaway.
I think that people need to think about their scripts and how they're practicing talking to people, and remember that it's not about you. It's not about the real estate agent. It's about the client, because how you present and how you sell things is how you serve people. So you need to remember that this is a service industry. We are here to do the work for those people. They are not there to provide us with more and more and more money, right? So I would say very similar, but man, how we sell is how we serve, guys, and it's time to serve.
Take that focus outward. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel and Buddy. This has been fantastic. I've got a few things. One, if you joined us live, if you didn't, we're going to email you a link to access the replay here within a day, within 24 hours. If you found this helpful, please let us know. There's going to be a question that pops up here at the end. Let us know. We are going to be, I mentioned this before, Thursday, May 11th, this same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking about using the phone. We're going to be joined by a special guest, Andy Cole. If you signed up for this mastermind or any future mastermind, you're going to be on the list for that. So we'll be letting you know. You can always cancel at any time, but it'll just kind of keep you up to date with what's going on. And then last, on Thursday, May 18th, you have the opportunity to join a customer town hall meeting. This is the first one I'm aware of ever from Sierra with our CEO, Peter McLaughlin. He's going to be talking about, and others, Sierra's vision response to the prevailing market trends and our product roadmap. So you're not going to want to miss that, whether you're a Sierra client or not. It's going to be an interactive experience. It's going to be packed full of great information for customers, for partners, for friends. So anyone's welcome. Be sure to check it out. And if you're signed up for this mastermind, you'll get information about that. All right. Well, thanks again, Buddy and Rachel. So grateful for you, and would love to, chat about this kind of a thing again. But until next time, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you later.
Thank you so much. Have an awesome day, guys.
Bye-bye.